guys, Chase from 2-Track Nation here, and today we're going to be swapping out some shocks from Dobinson USA on this truck. So right now we're actually doing a 1-for-1 swap. The only difference is that these are freshly rebuilt from Dobinson and they have custom valving in it for basically an 80 series Land Cruiser valving, because my rig is so heavy that we need a little bit more control. So Dobinson will do custom valving for you, quick turnarounds, and they rebuild all the shocks that are currently on your truck, and that's exactly what these are. So these are rebuilt, and so we're gonna swap them in here real quick, and I'm gonna show you how easy it is and some of the tricks that I know how to do, especially on the front. There's a couple things that we'll show you, but let's get going and start ripping these rear shocks off. All right, so we are at the point now where we're gonna rip this old shock out for the freshly rebuilt one and revalved from Dobinson. So we're actually also in the middle of a rear axle swap, which we've done a whole bunch of extra work, but all we really need to do at this point is provide a little bit of upward pressure on the rear axle like we did. We've lowered the truck down onto this jack stand to keep the rear axle from falling out, because this shock is basically the limiting strap. And then we're gonna take this top nut off the shock, compress the shock down, and we'll rotate it forwards, and then we can slide the bottom shock mount, which is this, right off the bottom of the axle mount. So then the rear axle swap begins. We start by disconnecting all of the lower links from the axle that we can, and then we're gonna lift the truck up and the rear springs are gonna fall out. I admit this is a super cheat code mode. I've done this on the ground with a jack many times before. This was much easier. We'll also disconnect the last bolts on the lower links and pull the axle right out. Oh yeah. Easy. And here is the new axle going in. It is a Dana 60 chromoly 40 spline ARB airlocked rear axle from ECGS that is just a bolt-in solution. How cool is this? And all of the steps are just in reverse that you saw. All right, guys, so at this point, we're now gonna do shocks on the front of the truck. And I've got a couple little tricks to show you on how this might work a little easier for you. So this method to pull the spring and shock out separately is not for everyone. It's dependent on your comfort level with working on your vehicle. I'm very comfortable with my whole front suspension setup, and I understand how everything works. I also don't have a sway bar. That's going to be important. Do you have other custom parts on your truck? Do you have a limit strap? You're going to make sure you want to disconnect that, and all sorts of other things, right? But essentially, this method is just to use the vehicle's weight as the spring compressor. You'll want to make sure all the joints on the lower control arm are loose, your inner bushings, and you'll also want to disconnect or at least loosen the outer knuckle lower bolts so that you can let the control arm completely droop and the shock can be pulled out from the bottom. You're going to just jack up on the lower control arm and it will compress the spring naturally, and then you'll be able to access the top nut and loosen it, right? We are up on a lift right now, and we have the back of the truck supported so it doesn't tip back. That's a very important thing to do, and I'll probably not do it on a lift because it didn't go as smoothly as actually on the ground using this method. So essentially, we were able to pull this out and decompress the spring safely by letting off the pressure from the lower control arm after we loosen that top nut, and it'll nicely decompress and it'll fall out, and we can then pull the spring out. So with that being said, we did this on both sides. We were able to pull and swap both shocks, no problem. So here's a quick side-by-side comparison, and what a difference. I mean, the old bushings were completely shot, which I knew, but these new ones are fresh. These are actually rebuilt shocks from Dobinson. You can go out and you can take your shocks off just like this, send them in, and they will come back rebuilt, looking nice and fresh. Put new bushings in, revalve, do whatever you want, and they'll take care of it. So beautiful work, Dobinson. Thank you so much. So here we are, day 2, and we've got this adjusted properly. We referenced off the old shock to get the height back to exactly where it is, so we should have no difference. We got new bushings, so we'll actually maybe get a slight lift, which will be good. And we'll just throw this back in, and it's gonna be that easy. And I'll show you there's a trick up on top with the adjuster that we'll have to do once it's installed. So I'll show you what's going on with that. That's good enough. And once you get the lower bushing installed, you'll then line the spring up with the top isolator, and you'll slowly press up on the lower control arm to push the shock up in, and you'll have to guide it into the hole, and that's pretty much it. Easy as that. All right, so you guys are gonna have to be careful when you put it back together like this, because we have a small spring and ball bearing right here that basically we're gonna have to insert into the top of the shock. Spring first, and then ball bearing on top, and then the adjuster right up here will push down on that ball bearing and help adjust the rebound grub screw at the top of the shock. So we're going to go ahead and install these, but just be careful when you assemble or disassemble to not lose these parts. And one trick to not losing these is apply a little bit of grease on your finger, insert the spring, and then same with the ball bearing. These things are tiny. If you drop it, you will never find it, I promise. And once that's all back together, you can go ahead and tighten the adjuster back down, and you're good to go. Back in the shop, a different shop. And clearly we got some new shocks on this hog right here. You just watched us swap out, I shouldn't say us, Hunter didn't do shit. But anyways, we swapped out some dirty shocks. Look how gross these are. But anyways, that is the nice thing about Dobinson is, one, they make really good shocks. And two, you can rebuild them. And you can send them out, they'll revalve them, whatever you want. These are the adjustable remote reservoir ones that I've been using for years, but they'll also revalve their IMS and non-remote reservoir shocks as well. So with that being said, this dude is riding pretty now, and we also have some of their new hydro bumps that are getting on this thing too. Yes, 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 we like that. And that's gonna be in a follow-on video, but we got the big cans in the back, and we have some for the front, but I have a sneaking suspicion that this front end is not gonna stay the same for much longer. So with that being said, thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you guys next time. Two-Track Nation, bye. Just kidding, we forgot. We have some new merch coming out. Check it out. This is a hoodie. It's a sample, and it's dirty. It won't come with the stains, I promise. But anyways, wandering, not lost. I don't know, some of you might get lost, but I'm mostly wandering. But let us know what you think of the design. We're still deciding on the fit and finish and color options, but I think you're really close to my face at this point in time. Maybe you should be close to this, huh? How about that? Anyways, let us know what you think about this, because we want to provide some cool options that actually resonate with the the community. So anyways, come back over here. Now we can actually go outro. Okay. All right, bye.